I'm recording. Excellent. All right. So this is the Side Hustle Revolution workshop. Thank you all for joining. It means so much to me. I love sharing this stuff. What is up? My name's Keith Johns. There's my contact information. I pride myself on the fact that I built my business on LinkedIn. I haven't built a website yet. I've been saving my money and investing in different ways. Um, and just do my whole thing on LinkedIn. So you're welcome to email me or to DM me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to talk to you more. Olga, thanks for sharing what you're interested in, based in California, in Europe now. Beautiful, beautiful. Olga, thanks for joining. She wants to learn about the possibilities for starting a side hustle. We are going to nail this stuff. It's going to be fantastic. Let me switch to the next slide. So what are we going to talk about? Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, not because I like talking about myself, but I am told my story can be a bit inspiring. And I want each of you on this call today to understand that anything is possible. To put it short, I have been through a few things. I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. This life I've been able to build while doing the things I'm going to teach you was earned very much the hard way. And I'm going to share a little bit about my journey and what my last 10 years were like. Won't take a whole lot of time on that, but I want you to know anything is possible. So I'm going to share that story with you. Next thing we're going to talk about is why a side hustle. Like, we hear it, right? We hear about it a lot. We hear a lot of things a lot. There are words that get overused, especially on LinkedIn. They start to lose their meaning. What does side hustle mean, and how can I apply it to my life? Why is it such a big deal? Then we'll talk about what it takes to start your side hustle. That's some inner things I'm going to talk about. We'll talk about what it's like to get started. So, how to move from conception and desire to actually putting something out there in the market. I'll give you a little bit of information about what it's like. Like, oh my goodness, once I'm doing this thing, which is new and different, I've never run my own business. What's it like? It's different than you might think. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with an offer from me, how I can help you and how I support people just like you all every day. So now, really, my business is twofold. I have my main line of business where I help people perform more highly at work, get better jobs, get promoted, and really enjoy their work life. And now I also help entrepreneurs. So I've got my main line of business, and I now have a secondary line of business where I help people follow the model that I followed to exit corporate. Why? Because I think work shouldn't suck. And that is my calling. We're going to talk a little bit about purpose and what brings us joy. And my passion, what gets me out of bed in the morning, is that I think we spend a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of our lives working. And whether you want to be in corporate or work for yourself or in a nonprofit or a small business, it should be joyful and it should be fulfilling. And I think far too many people sacrifice their lives for a paycheck. My message is you have options. And today we're going to talk about one of those options. So here's a little bit about me. It's going to be an interesting story. This is a Facebook post from 10 years ago. I had to dig up. And so this is my full transparency, holy cow story. This Facebook post is an absolute lie. That's my arm. It's got an IV jabbed into it. And if you look in the upper right hand corner, you'll see the lie. I claim I am in the hospital because I fell down 2 flights of stairs. I barely remember making this Facebook post. The thing that's true about it was I was indeed in St. Luke's Hospital, and it was my 10th day there. I don't remember posting this because I was in the midst of recovering from addiction. I spent 2 years putting my life back together after a terrible downward spiral, turned to alcohol and drugs to deal with my inner problems, to deal with not having the best dad and social anxiety and regular anxiety, right? So I adopted this lifestyle that just got worse and worse and worse. And at age 37, I found myself very, very, very sick. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, um, detoxing and getting this out of my system, and essentially being told I had to start my life over from scratch. So here's my 10-year journey. Again, I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know that anything is freaking possible. This is what happened. I left that hospital 10 years ago, June, with $5 in my pocket. No job, no car, no place to live. Not the best feeling in the world. I took 2 years off. I didn't work. I didn't re-enter life for 2 years while I rebuilt myself from the inside out, starting from scratch, because I knew I needed a new me in order to show up um, and really build the life that I wanted. And here's what happened after those 2 years. I got my first job back in. I ran a web design team for a small university in Toledo, Ohio. But something started itching me. I said, I want a real fresh start. I want to live someplace warm. I want to do something brave. I quit that job after 1 year with no job lined up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I moved. And me and my whole entire extended family moved down here. It was a very brave thing. A lot of people said I was crazy. They said, do you have a job waiting down there? And I said, no, but there's warm weather and opportunity. Two things I knew they didn't have in Toledo, right? A couple months later, I got my first like real in recovery job as a project manager at a technology company. Then rapidly began just kicking butt. Right, I took those 2 years off to rebuild myself, and it was off to the races. Promoted to senior manager operations, then vice president, then COO. Actually got to the point where I was offered the CEO position after 6 years of working at this company. Just fantastic. Anything is possible to go from where I was to where I am. Now, during that process, I realized I really like coaching. I love connecting to people just like this and helping them grow and helping them create realizations. So I hit a fork in the road. I could try to start my own business, or I could move into the CEO slot. It would be a couple years down the road, but move into the CEO slot at this company. And as you can see, I decided 1 year ago to start my side hustle, to do an experiment, to try and see, is it possible? Is someone who's the son of a trucker and a cleaning lady who comes from a very humble background, who struggled, who almost died in the hospital and came out, can he run his own business? Take care of things like health insurance, right? That's the scary thing. How do we get health insurance? Take care of his family, pay his mortgage. Can he do that off of his own talents and skills? All my life, I thought, no. But this time I decided I'm going to give it a try. And I started working on this business last July. Anything is possible if you want it bad enough. That's the takeaway from the first section of this conversation. Here's what happened. This isn't bragging. I just want you to know what's possible. Okay. I started my side hustle at the end of last July. So it's been approximately 1 year. I brought in $125,000 top line revenue, tracking to about $250,000 in my first full year of being independent, of being fully out. So that 125 was partially side hustle and partially after I had exit. The great thing, the money is what it is, but I am now in control of my time and schedule. My stress, although not zero, has certainly gone down. It's a different kind of stress, but it's my stress. I'm happier. I'm freer. It's amazing. And I'm living my life on my terms, right? And that's all I really wanted. I wanted to be my own boss and have control of my life, because we get one trip around this planet, one go at it. And I wanted to be in charge. I wanted to be in control. So what is it about a side hustle that makes this possible? What is it? Why is everyone talking about it so much? It may have been a few years ago that the purpose of a side hustle was to generate some extra income. And that's certainly one application of this technique. And that's all this is a technique. This is a way for you to figure out what you can pull off and accomplish in life. But for me, it created a very safe space to experiment. I had at the time my corporate paycheck. It was solid. It wasn't going anywhere. I felt at ease at work. I was an executive. I was established. Things were good. So I could try a business without putting really anything at risk and actually investing not a whole heck of a lot of money. I didn't need a ton of capital. Frankly, I hired a coach. It's the first thing I did to start my side hustle. I hired a coach. And that was my only investment for months. So a side hustle gives you a way to figure it out and either say, I enjoy this and I'm going to use it to make extra money, or I've now got a proof of concept. Or as Alina said, I've got a minimum viable product. I've figured out the problem I want to solve. the niche I can serve, and I've made a couple sales. And I think this is a thing. I think I've got something here. And if you don't figure that out in 3 months or 6 months, you can choose. You can keep experimenting until you find it, or you can decide it's not for you, right? I consider my first experiment a success. I sold my first product one time and I learned I was selling the wrong product. And I immediately shifted to sell something slightly different. This whole entrepreneur thing is really one big experiment. And that's why I've got the genius Dr. Emmett Brown from Back to the Future here. This guy would try anything to see what happened. And that's what entrepreneurship is like. So having a side hustle lets you do that. It creates that space for you to not need to pay the bills with the money you're making, for you to not need the answers right off the bat. Second thing it does is a side hustle allows for a smooth landing. Now, that doesn't mean it's butter smooth, but what it meant was I could decide financially where I needed to be in my side hustle, how much savings I needed to have, and how much monthly revenue I could project so that I could resign. So I could walk in to my 6-figure corporate job and say, I'm out of here, and know that I would be safe, that my family would be safe, that I would be able to take care of them. Side hustle lets you do that, right? There's this interesting, the business is going up, right? And then you can tail off on the corporate part of it. And what I started doing immediately after I got my last paycheck from corporate was I kept my pay on that same 2-week schedule. So let's say I was getting, just throw a number out there, $2,000 every paycheck. After my last paycheck, I began paying myself $2,000 out of my business account every time I would have gotten paid otherwise, right? The money was already there. The income was already flowing. I'd already figured out how to generate revenue. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't ups and downs when it comes to being an entrepreneur and selling, right? You certainly are disconnected from having that corporate paycheck, but you don't have to exit corporate until you're ready. So you can have a nice, smooth transition. And that's what this image illustrates. So that's the great part about a side hustle. You get to experiment, figure out what works, and you can create a really nice transition for yourself. And that's what I was able to do. Next topic I want to cover. A lot of people like me who are interested in this lifestyle, and maybe like me, you feel like it's for other people. I never thought I could be an entrepreneur. Owning a business was for people with different skills or different capabilities. It was something I didn't have. They were them and I was me, and that wasn't me. And so it's important that you understand what it takes, because a lot of us are successful. I was successful, and what I had done my whole life is what led me to that success. But it turns out the skills you need, the approaches you need, the creativity you need, entirely different to do this entrepreneur thing. I tell people all the time, this last 6 months since I left corporate have been the most amazing 6 months of my life. I have never felt more alive and like I was living more. But you've got to be ready to handle the ups and downs. You got to be ready to handle the ins and outs of what it takes. So it takes primarily, number one, a burning desire. Because there are ups and downs and challenges, because you're unplugging from the corporate machine, when and if you take your side hustle to exit, you've got to want it. And I don't mean want the business. You need to want what the business is going to create. See, I had a burning desire for a few things. One, I wanted to set an example for my son. I've got a 3-year-old, and for the first 2 years of his life, I left home at 5 in the morning and got home at 5 o'clock at night. And when I walked in the door, I was exhausted, and I wouldn't see him all day long. And I didn't want him to think that that was the only way to make a living, that you've got options, that you don't have to have an hour commute there, an hour commute back. And I actually really enjoyed my last job, but I didn't like that absentee father thing. I didn't like the model I was setting for him. And what was important to me was a model of good behavior. The next thing that was a burning desire for me was I absolutely wanted more control over my time. I wanted to be able to do what I want when I want. couple months back, I went to the barber on Monday, and I got my hair cut at like 1 in the afternoon, and I'm sitting in the chair, and the lady's getting ready to tune me up, and she said, "Oh, do you have today off?" And I looked at her and I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Oh, from work. You know, most people are back to work. Their lunch break is over by now." And I smiled and I just said, "I work for myself. I do what I want when I want." And that was really a cool feeling, right? That freedom is something, it's a little rebellious, right? Like, I want to be able to do what I want when I want. It just was a super important pull for me. And the third one, I'll be honest, I wanted to raise my income ceiling and take the amount of money I could make into my own hands. It's cool to work in corporate and get your 3 to 5% increase and your bonus, but that wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go fast enough. Remember, I started over 8 years ago. I had some ground to make up, right? So I wanted my capacity to earn to only be limited by my imagination and my drive. So you really need to have a burning desire to make this side hustle thing work. The other thing that's really important is the concept that creating a business is an infinite game. This is something that Simon Sinek talks about. He's got an entire book about it. And it's not, starting a business isn't running a marathon or a 5K or a 10K. There's just not a finish line. And it took me a while to adapt to that. But when you think back a few slides ago to Dr. Emmett Brown and his experimentation, if this is a constant ongoing experiment where the players are changing, where what you want to do is changing, where the market is changing, you better be in it for the long haul. You better be ready to pivot and fail and have to make U-turns and deal with dead ends, because this is not a game with a beginning and an end. It's not, an American football game where there are rules and 11 players to a side and the scoreboard at the end tells you who wins. Instead, you actually decide how to define what makes a win for you every day, no matter what's going on in your business. You want your business to succeed, but you're also trying to create a lifestyle where you're not trying to, oh, in 10 years, I'll be happy. Or in, 3 months, I'll hit the perfect revenue spot. It's just not how it works. So you have to have, for this to work, a very patient, long-term outlook for what's involved. It takes time. So the infinite game is one concept I think is really important. Here's the third. I consider this the most important one. It's what I talked about when I opened this, and I said, let's talk about what it takes, what you've got to do. This is the big thing where it's the skills, mindsets, habits, patterns, your thinking, all that built the success you have today is gonna need to be shifted. You're going to need to shed the old version of you and step into a new version of you. Because what happens is people take success in corporate where someone else is setting the vision, someone else is defining the product, creating the pricing, doing the selling, all that scary stuff. And we just got to do the work. And then we're like, okay, now I'll just keep doing the work, but I'll work for myself. And then we realize, oh my goodness, the old me isn't going to serve me. And this rewiring piece of the activity is my favorite part, because it's where you actually change the person as opposed to worrying about strategy and pricing and niche, which is important. We change the person so they can handle being an entrepreneur. And that's part of coaching I really, really enjoy. So you have to be coachable and open and be willing to change and start to think differently and show up differently. It's actually not as tall a task as you might imagine. It's very doable. And it's actually part of what I coach all my clients on. Because if someone isn't performing well in corporate or wants to get a better job, it's important that we revamp the person before we put them in the new scenario, because there's always things that we can improve on. So that's part of what it takes as well. So it's the infinite game, it's the burning desire, and it's the willing to do some rewiring of what goes on upstairs. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about how to get started. So you believe anything is possible. Now you understand what it might take internally, what kind of attitude you've got to have to make this work. Then you've got to decide if you're in the right place, right? Is now the right time for me to do this? And what are the signs that it is the right time? See, I had reached kind of my breaking point, right? I had reached my breaking point with being plugged into the system, and I wanted to be free, and I wanted it very badly. I was tired of the grind. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I was irritable and restless, wondering, is this it? Like, is this it? Do I just keep doing this until I'm 65 and then I'm all done? Boy, that's a lot of time. That's 20 more years of me just plugging away. Isn't there another way to do this? And I was definitely feeling stuck, right? My 3%, 5% increase, my bonus, that happening once a year, me not being in control of my time, having to ask for PTO, ask to take a week off, and then come back to a deluge of emails. Like, is that life? Is that what life is supposed to be? I just wanted more. I just wanted more. Deep down, I wanted to just suck the nectar from life as much as possible. Some people have these realizations in their 20s, some in their 30s. It can be super common in your 40s. I call it the new midlife crisis. Instead of people wanting a new red sports car, they want a new purpose. They want a new type of life. And that's so much more wholesome than buying a sports car and expecting that to solve your problems. So you redesign your life, and that solves your problems. Here's what I wanted instead. I wanted freedom. I wanted ease. I didn't want to be so fearful all the time, worried about work. I wanted more joy. I wanted to feel relief. I wanted power, right? Oh, what a great thing. Power, feeling like I am the master of my destiny. And I just wanted peace. I wanted things to be more simple and more under my control. And when I knew those things about myself, that told me I was ready. So here's the first step. Again, we're talking about how you get started. The first thing you do is a self audit. This is what kicked this whole thing off for me. I was working with my coach, and one of the first things she said was, tell me when you're feeling moments of pure joy at work. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting question. And I said, it's when the people who report to me walk down the hall, this is before COVID, and they walk in my office and I help them. But I don't help them by giving them the answers, right? I have them sit down and I ask them lots of questions, which is the difference between managing and mentoring and coaching. When you manage and mentor, you give answers. When you coach, you ask questions, right? So you ask questions when they're trying to solve a problem. They figure out what they want to do next and they go try a new behavior. And then the next week they come down and they're glowing. And you're like, what went well? What went well? I figured out how to do that differently. And now I've got a whole different way of approaching that particular problem. There were these growth moments I was producing in the people who reported to me. And the warm feeling I got was amazing. I said, that's it. That's what I really like doing. And she said, how long do you get to do that? And I said, yeah, maybe about 5%. And the other 95%, I'm helping run this business. And she said, well, what if you could do that all the time? And I said, now that concept interests me. So that's part of the self audit. The first question is, what moments at work bring you absolute joy? Another way to do a really powerful self audit is to think about what people are always saying to you. Oh, you're good at this, or oh, you're a good listener, or gosh, you communicate really clearly. We tend to not notice those things, but after this meeting, start listening to how people describe you. Your zone of genius might be hidden in one of those little conversations. You know about my experience with recovery, and I was in an executive peer group with someone else who, between just the two of us, we had similar backgrounds. And I was sitting outside during a break of one of our sessions and I was listening to him, very successful business person. Like I said, had some similar problems. And I spent half an hour with him. And at the end of it, he said, you would make a really good counselor. And that stuck with me, right? So I talked to my coach and I told her what I enjoyed. And I remembered what this fella had told me. I thought, gosh, I must be good at listening. I must be good at paying attention to people and making them feel like they're being heard. That's a pretty cool piece of feedback. What does that look like to serve people and get paid to do it? The third way you can do a self audit. So we've done two so far. What brings you joy? And what do people say about you? The third thing you can do is actually much more sort of go out and get the information, and I can provide you the questions. You can give a questionnaire to people who are close to you. It's a series of questions I use. I use it with a lot of my clients who are trying to find themselves. They want to understand what they're good at. You go and talk to friends, family, and coworkers, and you ask them a series of questions about yourself, and they can be exceedingly enlightening. To a person, everyone that I have do that exercise learns something about themselves that they didn't know before, something other people see in them that they don't see in themselves. So step one is a self audit, because this is a way we can decide what kind of product or service we want to bring to the market. So here we go. What do people say to you? When do you feel joy? And then the questionnaire to your family. Because what you can do next with those inputs is say, how do I change that into a problem I can solve for just one person? My first product that I sold one of, I decided that since I had a little bit of the counselor in me and I enjoyed coaching people, that I would teach leadership skills to people in technology. I sold that once. And then I learned during my work with that very first client that there was something else that needed to happen. It actually goes back to that slide with the picture of the brain. I learned that he was asking me for leadership training, but what he really needed was to figure out what the heck he wanted to do with his life, right? So I haven't sold a single leadership training session since then. Now I'm really a transformational coach. Someone comes to me with a goal. We decide what they need to change in order to be able to achieve that goal. And we make sure it's the right goal. So I figured out how to help one person with their leadership skills based on that internal audit I did of myself. And I was off to the races, because once you start talking to people you want to help, that's when the learning becomes really, really rapid. Once you get out of thinking and planning what my side hustle is going to be, what I'm going to do, and you start talking to people you want to serve, you learn really quickly. And your product and your pricing and your offer and your approach really start to crystallize. So in short, having a burning desire plus your purpose, so that whole self-audit process is about you finding your purpose. Why were you put on this earth? What were you destined to do? It's going to make work feel like it's not even work. That's what leads to success. Next thing you've got to know that is in front of you as you get started with your side hustle, there are some nuts and bolts stuff. If you're still in corporate, you need to talk to HR, right? I don't ever want you to burn your corporate job by doing a side hustle. Sorry, Keith, we have bad news. We saw you have a side hustle and I'm sorry, we're letting you go. We don't want that to happen. That takes away our safety, right? Our safety, our ability to experiment. So you got to make sure it's cool with your company. Then there's some administrative things around setting up your business, all things that I can teach you. We get laser focused on the problem you want to solve. That's really important. Then you define your ideal customer, you refine your offer, and you start selling. Now, obviously, there's all kinds of sub-steps inside of this. Particularly the selling piece can really scare people. Oh gosh, I'm not a salesperson. I hate sales. I'm here to tell you, as someone who isn't a salesperson and who has always hated sales, there is a beautiful way to sell that won't make you feel uncomfortable, that won't make you feel oogie, and that works really, really, really well. So I love helping people get over the hump when it comes to selling their product or service. It's a really important early step. Okay, so we've talked about the frame of mind you need to be in. We've talked about what it takes to start your side hustle. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it's really like. Because as I said, it's different. If you've never tried to start something from nothing, then you just can't imagine what it's like. And this is a bit of a cliche, but people will tell you it's a lot like riding on a roller coaster. There's fear, there's excitement, there's a rush, there's adrenaline, and there are moments at times, especially if you exit corporate, where it's a little bit terrorizing. Maybe say you go 2 weeks without a sale. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Right? Well, because you did the work on your mind and your attitude and your approach to things, you're prepared to handle that. Here's what it's also really like. Let there be no doubt, I worked super, super, super hard while I was side hustling and doing corporate at the same time. Now, I had a timeline, right? I set a date. I started side hustling in July, and I decided if I had achieved certain milestones by February, I'd resign. And that was kind of my sprint. It was about a 6-month sprint to determine if I could do this. And I worked from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. during those times. Now, it was during COVID, so I was right here, which made it much easier. I coached very early in the morning, over lunch, and then after work. And then I still gave fully of myself to my corporate job. In fact, because I got really good at time management and because I was stretching myself and growing new muscles, I started performing better at work, not worse. It's a funny thing that happens. A lot of people who start a side hustle, it develops them so quickly, they actually get offered a promotion. It's ironic, right? They're figuring out how to exit, and their company is seeing them become this amazing person. So I did work a lot. I did work a lot early on. That's tailed off since then, right? I've been able to start designing my time and my schedule to optimize it to do the things I need most. The other part was, again, a ton of experimenting, right? Being willing to try things and fail and learn and just have lots of conversations with people. The other thing you have to be willing to do is lean into your fears. There's a lot of fear that holds us back from doing the things we have to do to make it successful. The things we avoid are the things we end up having to tackle in order for this to work. So if you're scared of getting on the roller coaster, the first thing you've got to do is get on the roller coaster, right? So the side hustle experience was exhilarating. The coolest thing, I'll be totally honest with you, other than the aha moments, was when I started getting paid. The first time somebody gave me their credit card, it was amazing. It was amazing. And closing sales feels great. Like I'm talking to another human who at the end of the call says, hell yes, Keith, I want what you and I are going to build together. It's the coolest feeling ever. I got a big charge from that. So there's a ton of good things, a ton of challenges. It's a roller coaster, and it is worth every minute of it. If you've got a burning desire, and if you want it bad enough, if you want not just to start the business, but you want the life that a business can create for you, it's utterly worth it. As you can guess, what made it all possible for me was having a coach. I've actually had 3 different coaches over the past 2 years. I could not have done any of this without working with people who had done it before me, who could help me avoid mistakes, although I still made plenty of mistakes on my own, who could tell me what worked for them and give me advice and keep me propped up. Just knowing that someone had my back, that someone understood what I was going through and would be there for the good times and for the challenging times. Because there are times you might cry a little bit, right? It's not easy, but it's totally, totally worth it. And it all got started with a side hustle, with a handful of exercises that helped me decide what I wanted to do, the type of person I wanted to help, and I took it to market. And I just used LinkedIn to do it. There are lots of different ways to go about it. I'm actually working right now with a health and wellness coach out of Miami. He's amazing. I'm working with a product management um, trainer out of San Francisco. So this model works for all kinds of different businesses. You don't have to just want to become a coach. You can want to do all kinds of things. All right. Here's how you get started today. Obviously, all of you on the call, Ahmad, Aldo, Alina, Olga, thank you so much for listening to me jabber for the last half an hour. I'm super passionate about this stuff. So I want to tell you really quickly, if you're interested in learning more and understanding what it's like to work with me and what we can do together, here's the first thing. This is the toughest part. Taking action is always the toughest part. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and then I'll tell you about Amelia Earhart. So scientists did a study. They were interested in how people respond to risk and fear and how it affects their physiology. And again, I mentioned a little bit ago, fear can really hold you back from taking the steps you need to create the life you want. So they strapped a tracking system to people who skydive, and they watch the person's heart rate. And so the person's on the tarmac and they're getting all ready to go, and their heart rate is at a certain level. And then they're starting to get on the plane and their heart rate goes up. And then the plane takes off and their heart rate goes up more. The fear is building, right? And now the plane's at 15,000 feet or however high planes go when you jump out of them. Never done it myself. And the moment when the person's heart rate is highest is right before they take action, right? All your internal systems are telling you, no, 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 no. And it happens all the time in life. It doesn't have to just be jumping out of an airplane. It can be asking that person out on a date. You can feel the resistance. Don't do that. I'm scared. It can be investing in a coach. Oh, I don't want to do that. Too expensive. I'm not ready, right? It can be any number of things. Here's what happens once you jump out of the airplane. Once you do the thing you're scared of doing, your heart rate goes down. Totally bizarre and actually scientifically proven. Once you jump out of the plane, all your systems say, okay, I'm going to stop freaking out. And now let's figure out how to handle the new situation. Risks aren't that scary once you take them. They're scary up to the point you do take them. Once you do take them, you get to take advantage of the fact that your body is an adaptation machine. Your mind is an adaptation machine. That's why risk takers reap the bounty, right? Because they're willing to lean into those fears. Amelia Earhart said, the most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is mere tenacity. And we talked about that. We talked about the infinite game, that once you decide this is what you want, it's about perseverance. It's about believing in yourself. It's about faith, and it's about wanting it. The fears you will feel are phantoms. They're paper tigers. They are not really real. It's just our ancient caveman biology trying to protect us. It's not serving you. It's not helping you build the life you want. You can do anything you decide to do. You can act to change and control your life. Here's the thing, the goal isn't the reward because it's an infinite game. The process, the procedure, doing the thing, being in the moment today, starting your own side hustle, building your own business, enjoying the life you've built, that's what it's all about. The process is absolutely amazing. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're doing great. It's about quarter till. Then I will open it up for any questions. If you got questions, I'm going to tell you really quick. Again, this is how you reach me. KeithAllenJohns@gmail.com is my email. Send me a direct message on LinkedIn. And here's what's going on. So I have a couple products. They're both related to a work-life revolution. The one we talked about today is the side hustle revolution. And I am having a special offer right now where if you sign up with me, I push a lot of books to my clients, books that change my life. I'm offering 3 new copies of my favorite books, Questions of the Answer, Code of the Extraordinary Mind, and The Illusion of Money. There's a group program and there's a private coaching program. And I'm happy to discuss with each of you which of those programs might be the best fit for you. You get access to me, you get access to my network, all my materials, other people I'm helping. It's a fantastic community to join and be part of if you want to have this kind of life. And that offer lasts until August 13th. There's my contact information again. I want to say thank you to Ahmad, Aldo, Alina, and Olga. You've been an amazing audience. I appreciate you giving me the time. I hope you found this super interesting. I hope it's inspiring. And I hope I'll get to talk to you soon. Does anyone have any questions? If so, you're welcome to you can come off mute or you can put them in the chat box.
Hi, Keith.
Hi.
Thank you for sharing your story, and I appreciate the authenticity and the vulnerability, how you put yourself out there. Question, like logistically, when you went and to have that conversation with HR, how did that go? How did they respond? And what did you find worked in that conversation to not have them freak out.
Yep. So I'll tell you my experience, and I will tell you another experience so you can see the bookends that are possible. Now, because what I was doing in no way interfered or competed with
Right.
my current company, I actually had no problems. I went into HR. I said, this is what I plan to do. This is who I'll be serving. I will not use company resources. I will not use company hours. You will not notice any change in my performance. I said, is there anything in my employment agreement that prohibits me from using time to do that? And she said, nope. And she put it in my file and moved on with
And that was it.
my life. Now, I'll tell you one other story, but since I was so high up at my company, eventually how heavily I was promoting my side business on LinkedIn did get some attention. And I had to have a conversation about where my heart lay, right? So it wasn't that I wasn't allowed to run the business. It was, wow, you really seem to be enjoying that side hustle. You're really focused on it on LinkedIn.
Right.
Not really talking about your current company anymore.
Yep.
What do you want? And that's honestly, it was like just days before I was ready to resign. So the writing was on the wall for both sides. Now, I had a client in New York who went to his company, and he happens to be in an industry that's highly regulated. And they said, no, you absolutely cannot do that kind of side hustle and work for us.
So how did that go?
So,
what were the next steps after that?
Yep. I said, cool, let's get you out of there. So it was kind of amazing. I give all credit to him, but within 3 months, we found him a new job in the same industry. So lateral move that allowed him to do that side hustle. So we got his side hustle going, got all of the sort of surrounding bits ready so he could roll it out, and got him at a company that would let him do it. And he's working his side hustle right now because he wanted it bad enough.
Certainly. You have to want it bad enough to leave a job, come to a new job,
Yep.
and then manage all that comes with it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, folks, it has been a total pleasure. I would love to hear from each of you and give you each 45 minutes to dig a little deeper into what you'd like to accomplish. Thanks, Ahmad. I appreciate it. Ahmad, Aldo, Alina, Olga, thank you for your attention, and I hope to talk to you all real soon. Have a great day.